Okay, Shalom Aleichem. This is the week of Purim and the Parsha of Kisiso as Rosh B'nai Yisrael when you count them, and it's the Parsha of the Egel. And we're going to talk about Purim because by the time you see this video, it'll be Purim, near Purim. We're going to talk about Purim, the Megilas Esther, and my questions and answers on Purim. Now on Torah Anyline, you can print this right here. It's right on Torah Anytime. You can download it and even print it. Questions and answers on Purim. Let's go through some of the questions and answers on Purim, and then maybe at the end we have something funny to tell you about Purim. The question number one: where do we see in the Megillah the date the 10 infamous Nazi war criminals were hanged, similar to Haman's 10 sons who were hanged? Where do we see in the Megillah, this is still question number one, the Khmelnytsky massacres of 1648, when 100,000 Polish Jews were killed in 2 years? And where do you see in the Megillah the date of the start of the Second World War, World War II? Answer to the questions. The date that 10 infamous Nazi war criminals were hung, similar to Haman's 10 sons. If you go to the end of the Megillah where they mention the 10 sons of Haman, you'll see amongst the 10 sons 3 letters amongst the 10 words that are written very small. Tov Shin Zayin. That's 707. Right? Tov Shin Zayin. 707. 707. And one of the sons has a long Vav. Vayizoso, the last one. Vav 6 represents the 6th millennium, which is the year 5707. 5707 happened to be 1946. And before the last one was hung, his name was Streicher, Yemach Shemo, who was the editor of the Nazi Gestapo paper called The Stürmer. He, before they put the head over his head, and hung him, he says, Purim Fest. This is for Jews, Purim Fest. Because he knew that on Purim, the 10 sons of Haman were hung, and here, these are the 10 Hamanim, Nazis, B'nai Haman, they were hung. So this is said is a Purim festival for Jews. Now, it wasn't Purim, but you know what day it was? It was the day that the Allies came to the conclusion that of all the Nazis they had arrested, some they were freed, some spent their whole life in prison, and 11 of them were sentenced to death. One of them, the night before, took poison and killed himself. Just like Haman had 11 children, one committed suicide. And the 10 sons were hung. And you know what day that was? It's the day that the Gemara tells us, Yom Hadin for Rishoyim. Yom Hadin for Tzaddikim is Rosh Hashanah. Yom Hadin for Beinanim, who have to think it over, is Yom Kippur. The Yom Hadin for Rishoyim is doing Sukkot, the last day of Chalamot Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah. It was Hoshana Rabbah, October 1946. When the Allies came to a conclusion and they reheard the case, finally came to the last conclusion, they have to hang the Allies didn't know that the day they made for the hanging was Hoshana Rabbah, Yom Adin l'Rishoyim. These guys were hung on Hoshana Rabbah, and he said, Hashem put it in his mouth, Purim festival for Ayuden, for Jews. That was Purim, but it wasn't Purim, it was Hoshana Rabbah. But he got it right. It was a festival for Jews, which means he's saying, they won, we lost. That's in the Megillah, the 10 sons of Haman, 3 little letters, Tav Shin Zayin, which is 707, and one of them, Vaizos, has a long Vav, that's the 6th millennium, which is 5707, which is 1946. A year after the war, they were hung. And in Nuremberg, that's where the Nazis in 1933 made the Nuremberg laws against the Jews. That's where, in 1945, 12 years later, the the Nazis were hung. The same place, same building. Number 2 of 1, B of 1, the Khmelnytsky massacres of 1648, where 100,000 Jews, Polish Jews, were killed in 2 years. It says in the Megillah, 2 big letters. One is a big Tov, and one is a big Ches. Ches is in the beginning. Chur, Karpas, V'tcheles. It describes Achashverosh's party. And Tov is at the end, big Tov. Tov and Ches is 408. And it happens to be in the year 408, in the year 5408, which is 1648. That's the secular year. That was 1648, 350 years ago. That was the Gezeres Tach, the Gezerah of Tach, 408. And Gezeres Tat, it lasted a few years, 408 and 409, 1648, 1647, 1648, or 1648, 1649. It was Gezerah against 100,000 Jews in Poland. And of course he was an enemy of the government. He was a renegade with his gang. And finally the government caught him and decapitated him. But 100,000 Jews got killed. That's called the Gezerah, the decree of Tach and Tat, 1648, which is 408, 5408. And where's the third piece? The date, the start of the Second World War. That's in the Megillah, but not in Megilas Esther. It's in Megilas Eicha. If you go to the last chapter, 5, and the chapter starts, Oy mehoyelana, what happened to us over the ages, and you read those 6 words that are written, missing a letter, out of the gematria of the words that are missing a letter, and you come to a total of 698. And it was in the year 5698. 5698 happened to be 1939, when the war started, Second World War. And that word, that Hebrew date is Tov Reish Tzadiches, Tirtzach, to slaughter, or Tehei Ratzach, there'll be a slaughter. And it was in the 5th chapter of Eicha, that's why you put a 5 there. 5698. 5698 is 1939. Tirtzach, there'll be a Retzach, a slaughter. Zechar Hashem Ha'olam, God should remember what happened to us. Question number 2. What is Purim Katan? What is Shushan Purim Katan? What is Shushan Purim? What is Pesach Sheni? And what is Purim Mishuleshes? So, Purim Katan is the little Purim. Let's say some years there's 2 Adars, Adar Rishon, Adar Sheni. So the month before, it's not Purim. Purim has to be next to Nisan. So it has to be the second Adar next to Nisan. And the one before is Purim Katan. When there's 2 Adars, the 14th of the first Adar. By the way, my father Zatzal's Yahrzeit is on Purim, because he was nifter on Purim Katan. So every year on Purim I have Yahrzeit, and I don't have to fast because Purim you don't fast, or Chanukah, or Yontif. So he was nifter on Purim Katan. Some years we don't have a Purim Katan. Number 2, Shushan Purim Katan, the 14th day of Iyar, 1 month after Pesach. Hold it? No. Day after Purim Katan is Shushan Purim Katan, because the day after regular Purim is Purim Katan. So Shushan Purim Katan is the Purim Katan is the little Purim, and Shushan Purim Katan is the day after the Purim Katan. And Shushan Purim is the day that they had Purim in Shushan, or all walled cities like Yerushalayim and Akko and Sfas and a few cities like that. There's 15th. In Eretz Yisrael, there's Purim on the 14th if there's not a walled city. On the 15th, if it's a walled city like Yerushalayim, and in certain cities they were walled and the walls came down, they don't know if they had a wall. They have 2 days Purim, 14th and 15th. So Shushan Purim is the day after Purim for us. And Eretz Yisrael is regular Purim. Pesach Sheni has nothing to do with Purim, but there's such a thing as Pesach Sheni, because in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, if a Jew was Tomei, when on Pesach Rishon, he couldn't eat carbon Pesach, he had to eat it the next month. Iyar, the 14th of Iyar, that's Pesach Sheni. So why don't we have a Shavuot Sheni And the Sukkah Sheni and Rosh Hashanah Sheni, a guy couldn't hear the Tekiyas Shofar to make him next month. The Rosh Hashanah Sheni, or he couldn't fast his Yom Kippur, make it the 10th of the next month. Cheshvan, Tishrei Cheshvan, and make the Rosh Chodesh instead of Rosh Hashanah. Tishrei, make it the Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. And Sukkot, why only Pesach you need a Sheni? You know why? If you don't hear the shofar for some good reason, you're putter. So, Onis Rachmana Patre, you couldn't do it, so you're putter. Whatever, sickness, whatever, you missed it, you missed it. If your arm can't put on film, you're the putter. And you can't fast Yom Kippur, you're putter. You don't have to have another Yom Kippur. Sukkot, you couldn't eat the sukkah, so you putter. You tried, but you couldn't do it. You were sick, away, whatever. You were somewhere, you couldn't do it, so you putter. Chanukah, you don't make it, so you putter. You didn't light the Chanukah lights. Pesach is the only mitzvah asay that if you don't do it, you chayv koros. Better have another Pesach Sheni. Yes, there's one more. There's another out of the 248 positive mitzvahs. If you don't do them, you don't get punished, so you missed them, that's all. If you do an Aveira or something else, but you don't do a mitzvah, so you missed it. There's only 2 mitzvahs I say of the 248. If you don't do it, you get punished. Koris. One is bris milah, and one is not eating korban Pesach. So bris milah, if you found out that you didn't have a proper bris, and you're now above 13, you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 60 or 80, and you need a bris, you can get a bris. There's people in the Moelim that do adults. I just spoke to a Moel who did an 89-year-old man from Russia. He never had a bris. And healthy guy, 82 years old. He took a bus and he didn't want to tell his wife, and he went to the Moel and he said, do it right now, and then I'll tell my wife I met somebody and speaking. Didn't want to tell his wife that he was ashamed. She thought maybe it was a consequence. He said, I don't want to die without having a bris. In Russia, they didn't allow it, or maybe it was done by a guy and I wasn't right, and he didn't have a real bris. So if you don't, you know that, you have to take care of it. And if you have already the arla, you have to get kartopas dam bris, something else. You have to have a bris. 2 different things. Removing the arla is one part, the bris is something else. So you have to have a bris. If you don't do that, you chayv koros. If you don't eat the korban Pesach, chayv koros. So therefore, the other Yom Tov, you missed it, you put it. Purim Mishuleshes. We only in Yerushalayim. Purim Mishuleshes. Triple Purim. Let's say this year Purim comes out for us on Thursday, comes out for them Friday. But suppose it comes out for us Friday, comes out for them Shabbos. Shabbos. How do you do that? How do you make the Megilas Shabbos? How do you give Shlach Manos on Shabbos? How do you have Purim Suda on Shabbos? How do you get Shik on Shabbos? How do you do that? You can't do that. How do you do that? Do you know how you do it? In Yerushalayim, 3-day Purim. You read the Megillah and Matonis Levyonim on Friday, the 14th. On Shabbos, the 15th, you say Ala Nisim and you read Parshas Amalek. On Sunday, you do the Suda, Mishloach Manos, and we do everything on the 14th, on the 14th, this year, Thursday. They do it on Friday. But if it would be on Shabbos, we would have Friday, they would have Purim Mishuleshes. Some of it on Friday they would do, some Shabbos, some on Sunday. They read the Megillah and Matonis Levyonim on Friday, like most of the world. On Shabbos, the Adar 15 can't have a suda and can't give Shlach Manos. You say Ala Nisim and read the Parshas Amalek, which we read, not the Zechor, but the other one, by Yov Amalek. And on Sunday, they eat the Suda, Mishloach Manos, and get a little bit Lebedik. All that, and that's done for them. That's Purim Mishuleshes in Yerushalayim. Third question. What are the 9 major Yomim Tovim, the 9 major Yomim Tovim, and the 12 minor Yomim Tovim? 21 Yom Tovim altogether. The first major Pesach, Shavuos and Sukkot. Shmini Atzeres is 4. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is 6. Chanukah and Purim is 7. Rosh Hashanah is 9. Rosh Chodesh is 9. Rosh Chodesh is a Torah Yom Tov. The minor ones is Tu B'Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Leilonos, Tu B'Av, when you have to start learning more at night, Purim Katan, don't say Tachnun. Don't say, don't make a hesped. Pesach Sheni. If you're in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, you missed the first Pesach, you do it the 14th of the next month. Iyar. Lag BaOmer, where it's a happy day in the middle of a sad period. Isru Chag, every day after every Yontif. One day after every Yontif is Isru Chag. Erev Pesach, yeah, that's when you bring the Korban Pesach, because at night you have to be finished eating it by midnight, and then starts Chag HaMatzos. Shabbos Chazon, special Shabbos, reading special Haftorah. Shabbos Hagadol, the Shabbos before Pesach, special Haftorah. Shabbos Shuva, Shabbos between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Shabbos Shira, when we read the Shira, special day. Shabbos Nachamu, and the Shabbos after Tisha B'Av. And Shabbos Chazon is the one before Tisha B'Av. All right, number 4. Why is there no Megillah on Chanukah? Interesting. There's a Megillah on Purim, and there's a Masechta Megillah. And how come there's no Masechta on Chanukah and no Megillah? Why is there no Megillah on Chanukah? There is a Megilas Esther for Purim, and in Tanakh, and there is a Masechta Megillah for Purim in the Gemara. Why is there no Megillah for Chanukah? Answer: Chanukah occurred after the Tanakh was sealed. So Chanukah was in the middle of the second Beis Hamikdash, and Megilas Esther was the last entry in the Tanakh, 210 years earlier. Purim was right before the Bayis Sheni, and Chanukah was in the middle of the Bayis Sheni. So that's Bayis Sheni was 420, so the middle was 210. So Chanukah happened somewhere in the middle of the Bayis Sheni. Tanakh was sealed. There's no say for Chanukah. And why is there no Masechta Chanukah? Huh? Rabbi was from Shevet Yehuda, and editor of the Mishnah, and was angry at the Chashmonaim, who were Kohanim, who usurped the Malchus. They have right to take the Kahuna back, but not the Malchus. They took the Malchus and wouldn't give it to a person of anybody from Yehuda, and Rabbi came centuries later. He was from Yehuda, so he was angry he didn't give them a Masechta in Shas. When did Purim occur? Well, we told you, right before the second Beis Hamikdash. When did Chanukah occur? In the middle of the second Beis Hamikdash. And why did each occur? Why? Okay. Purim at the beginning of the second Bayis, they defeated the Bnei Haman, and Chanukah in the middle of the second Beis Hamikdash because the defeat of the Syrian Greeks in Eretz Yisrael. Can you name 3 of the 109 other Purims recorded in Jewish history? There, it says in Shulchan Aruch, whenever a big miracle happens to you or your family or your town, and you're saved from a tremendous miracle, you should celebrate a Suda, you and your children and grandchildren forever, to remember the great nates that happened to you. So over the course of centuries, 109 Purims are recorded in the Jewish Encyclopedia, believe it or not. And here's a few of them. Purim Zaragoza in Spain, Purim Vince in Frankfurt, and Pulver Purim in Danzig, 1803, when a pulver factory exploded, a gunpowder factory exploded, and everybody in the whole town was blown up, except the Chai Adam who lives in Danzig. You have to look it up. Purim Zaragoza in Spain, Purim Vince, V-I-N-C-E. There was a certain Russia called Vincent Fetmilch, killed a lot of Jews, and the government caught him. He was a renegade. They cut his head off in front of all the thousands of Jews in Frankfurt. It happened way back in 1700. There's 109 of these things. Look them up in the Jewish Encyclopedia. You look under Purim festivals throughout the year, throughout the history. What are the 4 mitzvahs of Purim? Kriyas HaMegillah night and day, Suda by day, which concludes the getting a bit inebriated, not drunk, chas v'sholem. Chayiv Adam le'mesuba bepuria. You have to get in the state of besamim, feeling good and gay and jolly, but not drunk, chas v'sholem. Chayiv means if you're good, obligated to get physically a little bit intoxicated, but never drunk. Chas v'sholom. It's a chil Hashem when they see a Jew, especially a Torah Jew, acting like a shegitz, like Mardi Gras, like Shikurim. It's a chilul Hashem, but the capital letters chil Hashem. No from Jew ever got drunk. No thinking Jew ever got drunk. Drunk means he wasn't driving a car, didn't say words that weren't fitting, he wasn't acting like a hooligan. He controlled himself. That's all right. Which is chil Hashem. If you make a chil Hashem of yourself in public, that's the biggest sin of all. So you have to do Kriyas HaMegillah night and day, Sudas Purim during the day, Matanas Levyonim to the poor, and Shlach Monos. And where should you spend most of the money? On Shlach Monos? No. On the Suda? No. On Matanas Levyonim, you have to spend the most of the money. And anyone who opens his hand on Purim, you give him, a Jew or a Goy. It says Nalacha. Give a Jew a little more, because there's less Jews to give him. But you give everybody, you're nice to everybody. How is Purim 100% different than Chanukah? On Purim we eat the Suda to show the physical continuation of the Jewish people. Because Haman wanted to wipe out the Hashmig, the Harug, the Abeid, as Kol Ayehudim, Narvad, Min Tafad Noshim, from top to bottom in one day. And we want to show them that we're very much here today. Yes, we're eating and we're having a great time. Chanukah is not, the Greeks and the Syrian Greeks never wanted to destroy us ever. They just wanted to convert us to be atheists, to be a good Greek. Chanukah, we light them in order to show the spiritual continuation of the Jewish people. Light you can't grab a hold of, you don't eat it. Or light represents knowledge. So Chanukah represents the spiritual continuation of the Jewish people. And Purim represents the physical continuation of Jewish people. In modern times, who wanted to wipe us out? Hitler. Who wanted to destroy the Torah of Judaism? Communists. Just make you a communist. Gave up Shabbos, gave up bris, gave up everything. Just believe in no religion. The communism is the religion of no religion. Communism is atheism. That communism is Chanukah. There's no mitzvah to eat anything on Chanukah. Anything special. On Purim, daf you drink and get inebriated a little bit to show we're physically alive. Hitler's a racist, and Haman was a racist. The Nazis and Haman. They wanted to wipe out the Jewish people. They don't care if you're religious or not. Communism and Chanukah wanted to wipe out the religion of the Jewish people. You can live as long as you're an atheist. How did Esther convince the Chachomim to put her Megillah in Tanakh, even though Tanakh was sealed? By the time in the beginning of the second base of Mikdash, when the Tanakh was sealed, there were no more kings in the second base, no more Malachim, and no more Nevi'im, so they said, it's sealed, you can't put it in. She said, no, I have a simon min Hashemayim, you have to admit me into the Tanakh, and of course now Tanakh has 24 books, but I had 23. How did she convince them? She said, look in the Torah, the two places where they talk about Amalek. What we read last week is Zechar She'osel Amalek, 47 words, 3 Pesukim. And over there in Bashalach, Vayava Amalek is 120 words. Put it together, 120, 47, 167. In the whole Torah, it talks about Amalek twice, and together it's 167 words. Mordechai and I wrote a Megillah that came out exactly 167 Pesukim. You're in, they said. That's Min HaShemayim. So that's why, say, Megilas Esther is part of Tanakh. Achashverosh was one of 10 kings who have and will rule the entire world. He was number 6 of the 10. Can you name the other 9 in chronological order? Hashem, in the beginning he made the world. Then came Nimrod, who through Avram and Kivshon, he was the ruler of the whole world. Then came Pharaoh, the most powerful Egyptian king. Then came Yisrael, and had to make some Mikdash to do, but they make Mikdash. Then came Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian king who destroyed the Bais Rishon. Then came Achashverosh, number 6, who wanted to wipe out through Haman the whole Jewish people. Then come Yavon, the Greeks, in the beginning of the second bias. Then came Rome, who destroyed the second bias. Then will come Mashiach, that's number 9. And a 10 again will be Hashem. V'achrei kechlos hakol levado yimloch. No law, says Nadon Lom. V'hoy Hashem HaMelech, end of Aleinu. Hashem HaMelech al kol haaretz, v'yom hu Hashem HaChodesh Mochad. Number 10. Can a person be permitted to cancel and nullify a positive Torah mitzvah publicly for all of Klal Yisrael? Esther imposed a horas sha'ah, a temporary injunction, saying, fast and do tshuva on my count for 3 days and 3 nights. Even though everyone was required by Torah law to eat matzah, because she said fast 3 days. It was Erev Pesach, and the first day Pesach, and the second day Pesach. Erev Pesach means the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th, and Haman was hung after the party, the second party, at night, and they had to fast 3 days. They couldn't eat matzah. So Hashem said, "Be'erev toflu matzos." Even you have to eat matzos. The mitzvah say the raisa, and Esther said, "Don't eat anything for 3 days." And it happened to be erev Pesach, and then the second day Pesach. So she was mevatla mitzvahs asay. She could do that. She was a neviah, and that saved Klal Yisrael. They did tshuva for 3 days. And Hashem destroyed Haman, and they were mevatla mitzvah asay. So you see, you can be mevatla mitzvah asay once, not permanently. Once. Fast and do tshuva and count for 3 days. Even though everyone was required by Torah law to eat matzah, this was the purpose of saving Klal Yisrael. And number 2, part of that question, 10.2, can one publicly violate a negative Torah mitzvah? Mean to do a violation? Can anyone publicly violate a negative Torah mitzvah for Klal Yisrael? Yes. Eliyahu Navi on Har HaKarmel, which is near Haifa, right? He said they'll be not allowed to bring any korbanos on any place except Shiloh. The period of Shiloh was 369 years before there was kings, at the time of the Shoftim. So you're not allowed to bring any place except Shiloh. So he made an exception on Har HaKarmel, and he got down Yerovam there, and Achov. No. It was Yaakov, the king, and he said, "Let's have a showdown. All your Baalish, Navi Sheker, and me, and see who's the real God, Baal or Hashem." Eliyahu Navi and Har HaKarmel made a mizbeach and brought a korban, even though one was not allowed to do this when there was a central mizbeach in Yerushalayim. Probably you meant Shiloh here. And all private bombos were asur, only bombo gedola, which is Shiloh. But he did this to make a kiddush Hashem and killed 800 feet in the VA, 850 the VA sheker. These are phony rabbis. That's what the VA sheker is, not goyim. The so-called deviant Jewish leaders of their time. Look at Malachim Aleph, Yud Ches, Mem, 1:1840. You'll see the whole story. And was the time of Shiloh, when they had a Migdash Shiloh for 369 years. That was the Bama Gedola. That's where he brought the Korbanos. He couldn't have a Bama Katana, but he made it. He's a Navi. Hashem told him to do it. Har HaKarmel had a showdown, and he said, "Listen, you're the majority. I'm just a single person, and you called me to God, to your Baal, and you go first." And they had a mizbeah with wood and meat on it. If he sends down the fire from heaven, he's the God. And if not, he's not. So they prayed all day, and it came to Mincha time. They said, "No." I said, "Can we do now something a little bit?" So Eliyahu and his few friends threw down the meat and the wood and the stones, and built a new mizbeach out of boulders, and put new wood and new meat, and doused it 3 times with water, and prayed to Hashem. In 5 seconds, a fire came down from heaven, and it burnt up the meat and the wood and the stone, and pulverized and dried up all the water. And then the VA sheker fell down. There were 450 of one kind and 400 of another kind. The VA Baal and the VA this, 850 altogether. And they bowed down. They admitted Hashem Hu Elokim, Hashem Hu Elokim. They all became Baal Yeshuva that second. And Eliyahu Navi knew that Avodah Zarah was so strong that in a week or 2 or 3 or 4 or a month they will go back to their Avodah Zarah. Most of them, not everyone. To save them from doing this, he did them a favor. He had them all executed. So they should die as Tzaddikim, go to Gan Eden, rather as Rishoyim and go to Gehenna. He had them all executed. Look at the Navi. That's where the Haftorah ends. Before that part comes, read a few more psukim. After the Haftorah ends, you'll see he had them executed, and their blood was running down Har HaKarmel into the river, and they died as tzaddikim because Al Yanavi knew they would go back. Maybe not all, but most. Okay, Rabbi said that's enough for this. Now let's read you a little funny poem, and then we'll wish you all a very happy Purim. Today I am 13 years old, and it's my opportunity to become an Alter Yid. I thank my Tif Tyra Elton that they had shlachmanos, rachmanos, and sent me to the local bar mikvah school so I could learn what I got to do. My Rebbe, Rabbi Lo Klum, and my other Rebbe, Rabbi Bar Reik, promised me to put on my tachrichim every day, that I should kiss my scissors. Also, I'm going to wear my telescope, my tehillim, every single day, 7 days a week. I'm going to go to shul to hear the Chazer daven, and I'm going to read my Kratzmach and Shimon Esrei. My teachers and parents, Lo Aleinu, also teach me about the Hamim Tashin, the Yomim Tovim, the Jewish holidays. They taught me about the holiday Russian Schooner and Yankee Clipper. When everybody gets sick from fasting, I sit in shul all day long and daven from my mamzer. That's when we all bet on baseball games. That's why they're called the days of penance. And we only attend Orthodox synagogues which has a high chalitza, a high mitzitza. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, all the boys and girls go down to the river for tachlis. Then comes sikkos. They all go to the sukkah, get sicker from the liquor. That's when my grandfather comes home from school with the lulu and a hayshvik to shake. Then there's the holiday of Passover. We all go to my grandfather's house and we eat arizeda. Grandfather sits there with a strudel on his head and wears a long kvittel. That's when I recite the 4 kachkas. That's the story that begins with Man, the Shevetz Halei, L'chazeh Mikol HaChazeirim. After the 4 kachkas, it's my turn to hide the apikoros. Then we eat the makas with the murder, which we dip in horror sauce. Charoses. They also told me about Chanukah. That's when we light the Chanukah liquor, which they put in a large mitzorah. In school we play games with the Yankee Doodle. The Chanukah Droodle. We also play cards a lot, like my father does all year long. Then there's the great and famous holiday called Bar Room. When we read the Bar Room Magefa, when everybody gets drunk, plastered and stoned, we also go to my grandfather's house again and eat his flummentashen. My rabbis, Rachmana litzlan, also taught me about the Jewish history, which is contained in them books, like the Chumash and the Misa Meshuna, and the 63 volumes of Gamliel. It all started with our forefather Abraham Ofini, Isaac Ofini, and Jacob Ofini. And also about the great leader Ma Osur Labreinu. They also taught me about the famous troublemaker Yura Bumming About, and about the Jewish fighters and heroes Judah Macaroni and Menachem X and King Davy Crockett. Friday is the Mohammedan Sabbath. That's why it's called Arab Sabbath. I learned that every time before I eat, I should make a brach. And I shouldn't eat meat unless it's killed by a shegetz, while the Mashiach is watching. Ich will danken mein Rebbes, was haben mir geteach, das jüdische Sprache sehr gut zu sagen. And I want to thank my parents for the wonderful bar mikveh they made for me. How they worked on Shabbos and Yom Tov to bring me up to be a good Jew. I hope that they will have a lot of menuchas from me, and in later years when they pay us away, I will sit shivering for them. I promise to say Kiddush over them and to visit their mitzvahs every year. Oh yes, in closing, I would like to say that one should always honor one's parents, My mother, Oliver Sholem, was a real Eishes Ish, and she came from a very fine yichud. It's funny, no one ever spoke about that. She would always wear a kichel or a shtetl on her head. Everybody knew her as real fine Isha Kadesha. And her behemisha cooking was unbelievable. For Shabbos she baked the best chalochkes. in the neighborhood. Before lighting the Shabbos Kneglach, she used to put money in the kishka. She was head machashefa of the burial society. That was called the Chever Shas. She ordered that all bereaved should be treated as a meis mitzvah and use only mayim shalonu for the tahara. And the 7 close relatives, the Shiva Nikiyim, they to be treated with great respect. She ordered that if one was too poor and for a proper tahara, the 3 Gedolah Ha'ir, the Shalosh Sudos, should pay for it from the money of the Paraduma fund. She also commanded that the close relatives, the Sheva Arayos, should carry the body to the Beis HaKetores. Also, not to embarrass the poor people, all coffins, Arone HaKodesh, had to be covered with a plain and simple kapores. My father, Zecher Nesias Mitzrayim, was a great and prominent Tanis Chalom. He was a shechita in the old country. He also came from the finest yichud, and nobody ever knew anything about that. That's funny. He was an honor to look at. He had long white azaz upon him. Every Friday night he would hold a bechar of wine and say the Kaddish so sweetly. For every situation he had a Jewish saying, either from the Torah, or from the Nevi'im, or from the Keruvim. In shul, they always gave him either shlishi or nifter. And we never spoke in the shul except during Chazoras Hashatz and Chazoras Hashatz. On Yom Kippur, you should have seen him fall koreich. And on Simchas Torah, we danced all the 7 hashkochas. He was famous for the sefer Savoras Hakeres, and then his second sefer Divrei Bilbul Imrei Tipshus. He was president of the congregation called Rodfei Kesef, Anshe Mirmo of Kelm. He used to give a weekly pilpul shir in Sifrei Stira V'Kozov. He was well known as the Bluff Hayadua of the Shir Hashavua. He used to tell me and my 2 brothers, Yankel and Shmuel, that we should always thank Hashem that we are not following the path of immorality and perversion. In fact, there's a daily bracha we say about this. After Birchas HaTorah, it's the one that goes Shloas Hanigay. Hashem will punish them and one day, as it says, Heishiv Gmul Al Gayim. He was a partner in the well-known old age home. That was called the Gnevish Shtik Nursing Home in Bedminster, Massachusetts. He was loved by his friends and customers, and also he did not understand Yiddish. They named him Ganef, the Kapson. When he got old and lived out his life at the Ir Hanidachas Geriatric Center, his 2 brothers, Sorer and Morer, got in trouble with the Jewish authorities for selling look-alike plastic esrogim, mehudorim, and microchips in the tefillin, shel rosh, that answered every Kaddish with very loud Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbi. Though these 2 uncles of mine had a very fancy burial at the Makor Hatuma funeral home. May they both rest in pieces in Gehenna, New Jersey. I also would like to thank my other 2 brothers, Pesach and Pesach Sheni, for helping me with this bar mikvah speech. I forgot to mention my brother Yankel Klutz. In yeshiva, he grew long, curly peiros and learned with such haskalah. He learned from Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, and Baba Maises. He knew every din and cheshbon. He just loved the Mashiach's Musar snooze. My sister had a wonderful chasana. She walked down the aisle while the chazer sang Baruch Hashem. And let me tell you, the challah was just beautiful when she stood under the chutzpah with her cousin. Her shver and shvister were simply crazy about her. You should know that we are very strict ourselves, We're terribly fussy about our meat. It has to have the best hashkafa. And we only use Chelev Yisrael. At our Purim Suda, we always serve stuffed kachkas, and for sukkahs, we pick the finest hadassim and averos. I really slept nachas from my family, and I'm sure they'll all grow up to be Roshei Svivos, busy with Kever Rechokim. And in Yetzer Hara, we'll all have to have Siyata D'Shlema with all of our children. In closing, let me wish you every success in our own Mamelokshin Hatzola Rabo. I mean, Aleichem Hasholom. Thank you. Have a very Freiliche Purim, everybody.